Finally, 2024 is coming to an end, and that means it is time for my top 10 horror movies of 2024. I guess a lot of different things can be said about 2024 and the horror movies that are there. I've looked at a couple of people's list already, and my list is going to be different. Definitely different. So if you're looking for a list that is different, I think it is definitely my list. A reminder that, again, as I've said it probably two or three times already, this is my list. Um, if you've watched any of my reviews or subscribed to the channel, follow along, you guys know what I like. I like blood and guts, slasher type horror movies. That doesn't mean, that you won't find something else on my list, but those movies tend to gravitate to the top. And those type of movies tend to be themed in my list often. I think particularly this year, I really went with a lot of it. And I think I kind of did that because if you have, for the few of you that might have been following along a lot of the reviews that I've done this year, I for A, B, or C reason, I think a lot of them have landed at about three pools of blood, give or take. So I think overall that just tells me that I was not hugely impressed with 2024. Thinking back, I think there were in the last couple of years probably a bunch more movies that I was more excited for. Probably at least a top five movies that I was more excited for in other years than this year. So I don't know if it's just me, horror overall, where we are. We've gotten a mixture of remakes and prequels and sequels and that kind of stuff. And you know that I'm not generally a fan of all of that, although you will find a little bit of that here in my list. We do have a movie that is part of a franchise, a couple of franchise movies here. But I think of all the movies, remakes probably piss me off the most. You guys know that. So yeah, I won't really have none of that. So yeah, again, my list going to trend towards that. I think when I reveal them all and you look through the titles, I think you will see a theme of blood and guts to all that. This is not a list, that are the Oscar movies of horror. I know a lot of people try to do that, base their list on, the acting and the writing and the directing and this, the photography of it. And, you try to combine all those things and measure them all out and all that. And maybe even some give favor because of studios and whatever, blah, blah, or for whatever reason they come up with their list. Those are those people's list. They're, and that's fine and good. Like I said, this is my list. I'm sure some of you are going to look at it like, what the hell is he talking about? What is that movie? What is happening here? But that's fine. Like I said, my list, that's what it's going for. I've seen a couple other lists. There's one movie in particular, I really didn't like the movie, or it just really wasn't a movie for me. And it seemed to be on the few lists that were there. There are a few that are on my list that are on some of those other lists that I saw. But one movie in particular, I'm not going to name it. I'm not trying to throw any movie under the bus. You can probably go back. I did review it, so it is there somewhere, and maybe find it if you would like. Not on my list. My list is also not going to include any movies that are necessarily themed at making a social issue or that kind of thing. Those things. Not to say they can't land anywhere, but those. I'm not gonna just put a movie up there because they took an issue and tried to make a big out of it and blah blah and did a great job with it. No. My list is blood and guts, and then that's where I kind of start. Kind of looking at it, one thing that seems a little absent. I mean, I think some of them had a little humor in maybe some parts, but not big on it. I think the last couple of years, one of the trends that I've done is to add a one or more horror comedies here, and I just kind of as I'm staring at the list as I'm talking, realizing that there's nothing in here that's really in that ballpark. So I don't know what happened this year. Was nothing funny? I don't know. Maybe I have to, as I go back and think, I don't know what was funny in horror that's not there. Another kind of disclaimer here before I get into it. I did see a lot of movies. I tried to see a lot. Um, as of recording this, I have not posted it yet. I haven't figured out where I'm going to post it, but I will be doing a review probably after this. Is The First Omen. I finally did see that, so you don't be scared that you haven't seen that reviewed. I just caught that. That was one of the movies I wanted to make sure I squeezed in and saw before I made this list. But other movies that I haven't seen, two specifically. One is Beetlejuice, and that might have filled the horror comedy part of it, but I have not seen that yet. I know, shame on me. I want to see it with my wife. If I see it without her, I'm probably going to be in trouble. So we're waiting on a time for both of us to sit down and watch that. So that is why that is not on this list. I'm not sure would have made the list. Again, very going to be very absent of blood and guts. So I don't know that would have fit here. But just to let you guys know, also Nosferatu, which is just coming out at the end of the year. I really, it's fun putting it at Christmas, but not fun for doing a list like this. I know it's landed on other people's list. Great for them that they got to see it before, advanced copies, whatever, advanced screeners. But I was thinking about waiting to see if I would see it, but I probably not. It has met some people's list, so that tells you, can tell you whatever. When I eventually see it and do the review, if I thought it was worthy of this list, I will certainly let you know in that review if it would have made my top 10. But as of now, I have not seen it, and I just decided to go ahead and do this because I doubt I will see it before, and I'd rather just get this out before the end of the year. So, if there's any other movies in there that you're in question, that you really liked, that, you're like, hey, I don't see it in your top 10, you can definitely scroll through the channel, see if you see it, scroll through the blog, see if you find it. And if I reviewed it, you can catch what my thoughts on it. If you just want to ask in the comment section, say, hey, I really like this movie. Did you see it? Your thoughts? Did you not see it? I wanted it in my top list. You didn't put it. What's your problem? Feel free to put all that down below. I think that's it for disclaimers. So, again, final reminder before we dig into this. My list, my favorites, doesn't mean they're yours, doesn't mean they subscribe to the wider majority of the media that's putting out their list or whatever. Not, the Oscars of horror here or anything like that. This is largely based on my taste in horror and what I like. I think there's going to be a couple of surprises. You might scratch your head. But yeah, okay, so we'll get into it, and I'll try not to labor too long on any of them until maybe we get closer to the top. So, with that, like I said, a lot of movies ended up kind of in the middle for me. If you go back and you see any of these reviews and go, oh, but he gave, didn't give that a high score, or whatever, whatever. It's whatever. When I did the reviews, I gave the score, and that's how I felt. Doing this list is kind of, my afterthoughts, and maybe things changed, and thinking about the movies and whatever, and of course putting in order. I think, maybe a couple of these at the bottom, maybe you can mix, match, and change them up. So, I think, when we get higher up, then it means a little bit more. So down at the bottom, I think a surprise number 10. And, again, I kind of going through it. A couple of movies that could have made number 10. One that I really liked that I did recently for a review is Mr. Crockett. I don't think I've posted it yet, but I did the review. Um, really liked that film. Almost put that in this slot. And I almost also put Trap in this slot. Um, but I went with Night Shift, and this is probably a movie that's you know on the border of kind of being in this kind of list. The Blood and Guts, there is some of that eventually in the movie, but this was more of a kind of psychological horror, kind of had some twist in it. When I say twist, sometimes as horror fans, and I talk about twists all the time, trying to be spoiler free all the time. Sometimes you see it coming, sometimes you don't, but I think this one did a kind of a really good job of kind of being dark and creepy. I liked, the where it was kind of in this hotel at night. And, I definitely enjoyed the ending of the movie. And, sometimes getting there is not the greatest thing in the world, but the ending, can do it for you. And I think that this is one of those ones where when it ended, I was like, okay, it kept me on my toes enough and was kind of mysterious, and then I liked the twist, whatever, in the end. So maybe starting off here with a shocker. I don't know that you'll see Night Shift on many other people's top 10. Again, it could have easily been switched out with one of the other two that I just mentioned, and maybe, a couple others that I thought had, maybe were okay going into it and getting there, but had good endings, and then I really liked them. I think another one was Grave Torture, by a director that I really liked. I really wanted to put it, give him the benefit of the doubt and put him in here, but I decided against it. But I really liked the end of that movie too. Maybe getting there was a little, but I really liked the end of that one too. So number 10, maybe not of huge importance here, but I went with that one. Number 9, I think, is kind of a continuing theme. This is a franchise, and I've put basically the last several of them in all of my top 10 list. I would say the previous one in this franchise, I still have not seen. Shame on me. Again, shame on me. I've not seen it. I just completely missed that one. I really want to catch up and see it. Have not. But I think you'll find the last couple of versions of it are in my top 10. So it's almost like a tradition at this point to put it in here. And that is going to be VHS Beyond. They've really done a really good job of reviving this franchise, doing good stuff, getting a lot of good people, actors, directors, writers to put together these shorts. Some of them you're going to like, some of them you may not like, different themes and different things. This one, kind of was an alien AI kind of based one, which, I'd have to say maybe is not totally in my ballpark, but they did do some blood, they did do some guts, and some crazy things in it. And, I just couldn't go without sticking it in there. So, it's almost, like I said, like a tradition, so it's here. I think I might have seen this one on some people's list. Again, not the Oscar-winning one. It's full of short films, but I enjoy the franchise. I'm looking forward to the next chapter, and it's just, as I think I've probably said in some of the reviews for them, it's just a shocker that they continue to bring this back to life and continue on with it. And but it's been for the good. So like I said at the top, some things to complain about: horror remakes, bad shark CGI. This is definitely one of the good things. Number 8 is another franchise film, and again, I stared at this one and do I want to put it? Do I not want to put it? It's from a franchise that obviously, going back to the beginning, was really a fan of, some of maybe the later versions of, and, even some mixed in between. It's a mixed bag. But I think at the end of the day, for me, it is the Alien, and then I'm talking about Alien Romulus here. So number 8. Um, the Alien is really what does it for me. And at the end of the day, again, keeping it very, very simple here. Um, I think in the doing the review for that one, I mentioned that there were a couple of times where, you know, anytime the alien came and was trying to kill somebody, I'm all for that. Showing the alien, um, the face sucker things. I can't think of the name off the top of my head at the moment. Those things are wonderful. It was good to see them back in action. Um, anytime like they could just do, and I think I said this in the review. Forget about much of what's going on in the movie. Just have a bunch of people in space getting killed by the alien, getting impregnated by the alien, getting face sucked by the alien, and anything else happens, it just happens. But as long as that's happening, I'm down for it. So again, kind of narrowing down the movie to the basics, and the basics of what I liked. Um, you know, kind of puts the movie in here for me. So, I know a lot of people judge this movie on other things and comparing it to the others and sequels and prequels and all that, and then the franchise and where it lands and where it stands and whatever, and all that. That's all fine, fine and good. At the end of the day, I enjoyed kind of seeing that again. Maybe it's been a while. I know Prometheus was a lot weird, at least for me. So it was good to kind of see something that seemed kind of similar to the original or the old ones, and then get back to that alien killing fun. So that's kind of where it landed for me. I thought maybe I'd move it down, but then I said no, it's Alien. I can't put it at 10. Maybe we'll move it up a little bit. So again, maybe some mixed match in 8 through 10. You can slide them around, whatever. Again, had to think hard about, if I wanted to put that in there. Again, with my list, I sometimes like to give to movies that maybe some aren't as familiar with, and I think you'll see that in my top 3. Sometimes I want to give it to those more than movies that, everybody knows, everything's a franchise, it's going to make a lot of money just because everybody's going to go see it because it has its name and whatever, blah, blah. I don't know. But I decided to go with it. I enjoyed the aliens, and we'll give it to the aliens. Number 7 here, speaking of a movie that I'm not sure how many people saw, didn't see, whatever. I almost thought about giving this one a little bit higher. I think, 8 through 10 are kind of, I think you can interchange them if you want, at least for me. I think this one, I actually thought I wouldn't slide down. I would maybe slide up, if anything. And this one is one that, I remember I kind of wanted a screener for. They didn't send one for me, and then I kind of had to wait, and then, I eventually saw it. So, then I almost kind of gave up on and was like, okay, well, they're not going to send me a screener, but then I finally, stumbled upon it and like, okay, going to watch this now, and I'm glad that I did. And this one is hashtag AMFAD. And you're like, what? And that is All My Friends Are Dead. And why? I think the title in it probably might tell you a little bit of why it's in my top 10, because if all my friends are dead, that means there must have been some blood and guts there. And there was. So, that, of course, again, sticking with the theme, is a big part of why this movie's in here. Had some blood, had some guts, slasher themed. Kind of starts out being the kind of typical thing that we see, group of young people on the move, end up in a place, and eventually most of them are going to die. So, lots of commonness there, but I think as this movie goes on, it is full of twists and turns at the end. It was, one of those movies that really hard to do a good review for. That I really love to do the spoiler-free reviews, which I know ruin a lot of reviews because there's stuff to talk about and I just don't talk about it. But yeah, I'm gonna spoil any of these movies here. I'm not gonna spoil either. But this one is full of twists and turns at the end. It's not just about the blood and guts here. I liked it. I liked that it kept piling it on, and every time you thought, okay, that's the twist, the movie's gonna end. No, there's a little bit more of a twist and more. So they kept going until the movie kind of ended, and I enjoyed that. So I enjoyed that it just, well, it didn't end up being just another slasher movie. I think, and this one also had the, I don't remember if it was totally found footage type movie, but did have the element of the camera and that kind of thing was important to it. And those also movies aren't always for me. Especially true found footage movies aren't for me. But this definitely had that element of it, but it didn't ruin it for me. It definitely ended up being an important part of the movie, and I think there are two or three other movies that they're probably more than that. There's a whole bunch that I saw that I didn't review. Say what you want to say about those movies, but there's a lot of movies, kind of influencer based. I guess we've kind of moved from being, the Blair Witch kind of found footage to the influencer found footage kind of thing. We've seen a bunch of those movies the last couple of years. Some have worked, some haven't. Some haven't. Some haven't. But they're there, and this one kind of incorporates that, or even if it's not an influencer, maybe a group of young people that are just online obsessed or whatever. You're doing something, and we get the found footage kind of angle in it, and there's another one that just recently came out. I don't think I posted a review for it, but I know I've reviewed it. Lots to catch up here at the end of the year, but kind of as a similar thing. Kind of filming was important in it, and lots of people died, but I don't know that one just didn't do it as much as this one did it for me. So yeah, I definitely think this one is one that you guys may not have seen, maybe heard of, caught, but I would definitely recommend seeing it, especially again, blood and guts. I mean, if you're like me and then that's really all you need, I think that this is a good starting point for that. But there are some twists and turns towards the end. And again, when I say twists and turns, I know that you guys have seen a lot of horror movies. Sometimes it's not so twisty or whatever because you're just like, I saw that coming and whatever, and boo, because I knew it was coming. But still, even with that, sometimes and again, sometimes I pick up on it, sometimes I don't. I I can appreciate what they did and what they tried to do, and maybe fooled some people out there. It's kind of like with the scares. It's being a long time horror fan. It's very hard to get scared. But it's more about appreciating, the attempt in it. What did they do? How did they pull it off? And so forth. So, I think that's it with the twist in this one. So, I think that this one has made it to the point it's on more streaming outlets now. So, I would definitely be on the lookout for this one if you guys are interested in it. 6 is when we start getting a little crazy here. This was definitely a crazy film, starring our good buddy here, Nick Cage, who just never fails at just doing a very odd role, weird role. Again, I'm kind of shocked by the number of horror movies he's now compiling and has done. I would say, it's kind of been a mixed bag. I've liked some, and I've not liked some that he's been in. He's done, again, some odd characters, interesting characters, and this one is another crazy one. A lot of people I know, got off to a good start with this movie because of the marketing for it and the mystery, and nobody really knew what it was going to be about and what was going on, and it was very weird. I know a lot of people gave props to it on the way it was marketed to begin with. Another one that I kind of stared at and was like, where do I want this in this list? Do I want this in this list? I know that probably when I did the review, I wasn't even thinking, wasn't sure that this would be in this list. And, but I just kind of think again to the blood and guts of it and towards where this movie kind of ended and the craziness of where this movie ended. Um, again, obviously endings of movies play a big part in things. Where does it all lead and how big is the ending? And, I kind of think of the craziness that happens as this movie ends or is trailing towards the end. And, that's kind of why I kind of brought it to here in this spot. Just on the outside of the top five. I don't know that I would put it higher than any of the movies here. Maybe number five, if anything. I don't think higher than any of the other ones. Again, I guess of the movies that I have here, and we want to talk performance, even though I'm not talking too many performances here, and specifically, I think that this one was, well, even though he doesn't say a lot of really coherent things, whatever. He does, pull off another good odd performance, and also the I forgot her name, the main actress in this movie. She does a pretty good job in this movie as well. Kind of gave me that Silence of the Lambs kind of vibe in ways. I think that's kind of mixed in it. Maybe another reason to kind of like the movie. Obviously not Silence of the Lambs, but kind of giving off those kind of vibes in certain areas of the movie. A little bit of twist and turn in it as well. That was really well executed. Seen this one on people's list, so I don't know that it'd be too much craziness with having it in here. I probably a lot of you guys have already seen it, so I don't really want to go too far into it, but it did make the list. I really wasn't sure, even what to expect when I watched it, but it would end up here, and it is here. I'm sure that if I did this list, probably 2-3 days from now, the order would change. Maybe some movies wouldn't be here. I don't know. Again, very middle of the pack, a lot of these movies for me this year. So we're getting into it. We're now into the top five here. I'll be honest and say that number five here, probably, thinking about it coming out, I probably would have thought that this would be in the top three, just based on expectations. This is a movie that is in now a franchise. To kind of give you a quick hint here before you figure it out, a movie which I think at least the previous version was probably higher ranked. I can't say for sure. I'd have to go back and look at it, which I didn't do, but I'm guessing it was. And I would guess just because I will honestly say, and I think I said it in the review, that I think I liked the previous one just a little bit more than this one. And that's probably why this ended up number five and not a little bit higher. But is definitely, when we talk about blood and guts and that kind of thing, and that's kind of what my list is all about and where I want to be. This is the movie. This is one of the movies, and I'm of course talking about Terrifier, Art the Clown. Again, putting a stamp on horror. Again, it looks like we're getting more of Art the Clown. I've talked about it before, of Art the Clown kind of being this generation, or this era's horror icon, or one of them that can be that one of those characters that when you look back at this generation, he's one of these characters that stand out. And just because I slid it back maybe a little bit from the other one doesn't mean anything to that. Doesn't mean he did anything wrong. I think the main issue, if you watch my review of that, my main issue with the movie is that I thought it tended a little bit too much towards his partner in crime. I think Victoria was her name. Um, yeah, she plays an important part. She's an important part of the movie about, where the direction the movie goes, what, art is doing. So while she is important, I thought in the final moments of the movie, or towards the end, again, we're talking about the end of these movies, um, I probably wanted a little bit more art, and it was just seemed that she got in the way, at least for me. Um, Otherwise than that, the blood and guts, again, it's what I'm here for. This movie is all about it. I love it. Practical effects as well. We don't want, too much CGI, BS in it. So I think we get a lot of what we expected from the other ones. Crazy scenes. I also can honestly say, maybe there's a tad of, okay, this is the third one. I've seen art, I've seen what he does. While I enjoy it, it is the third one now. So it's not as, like, oh, wow, what is this? We haven't seen this before as much, blah, blah. Now you're kind of getting into that, okay, I know who he is, I know what he's in, I know what to expect. So, it takes a little off of it a little bit as well. But, and I know when I did that review, I thought, yeah, maybe I should have been a little bit more generous and maybe given art, like, he still did, some of his crazy stuff. 'Cause I think that when I did the review, I felt that maybe he didn't, but then, kind of thinking about it and kind of seeing some images kind of and stuff that's come out since, maybe I was touch harsh on him. But I think, for me, really why this ended up at number five and whatever I ended up giving it in my review, the real reason is because of his partner and whatever. And I thought she took a little bit more of the spotlight than I wanted, and I just wanted art in the spotlight. And again, I understand why and the reason and blah, blah, but that's probably my biggest thing and maybe why it kind of slid. And again, because we've kind of seen it, now. You can argue, oh, but you've seen VHS, yeah, but they're different short films. I mean, whatever, right? Whatever. So yeah, that is where it is. So while you guys want to, when I said earlier that this is a blood and guts kind of theme thing, you're probably thinking, oh, Terrifier is probably number one. Or if not, it's got to be in the top three. So we're okay here. We got it at number five. It's there. Love the blood and guts. Not a problem with it. And if I was rating supremely on just that, that would probably be number one. The theme of everything is blood and guts, but it's not the only thing this year, especially as we move towards the top here. Number four, getting to number four here, trying to move this on, yes, I know, is a movie that I'm, kind of came out of nowhere. It, surprised a lot of people. I think a lot of people liked when they saw the trailer and it looked very interesting. Tried to take a new angle. I talk also about, why do we need all these remakes when, we can try stuff new and even if it's a little bit familiar, if we can make it newer, try to do something a little bit different, things can be tweaked and so forth. I think this one tried to do it. It wasn't perfect. I remember complaining about a couple of things there. But I liked in general where they went. I think that this movie certainly, I know when it came out, I don't know what people's thoughts now that they've seen a majority of the movies of 2024 and so forth, still think about it. I know when the movie came out, as of that point, people thought about it, had the kill of the year in it, might still, for in my book, it probably was. Still not quite sure how real and love all this, and you can complain about certain things about the kill. But certainly probably had the kill of the year. Again, trying to do something wild, crazy, and maybe a little bit different with it. Questioning, what the girl was really doing in the scene, why she didn't do more or less, jump off the cliff. I don't know. For those who have seen the movie, you know which one I'm talking about. We'll just say it was the yoga girl. I think that's what she was doing, whatever the hell she was doing, exercise, yoga, whatever, on the cliff there. Um, and that now means you probably know I'm talking about In a Violent Nature. The title alone screams should be in my top 10, especially if you're going for blood and guts and that kind of thing. Um, Again, a slasher movie that's kind of almost found footage like. I mean, we definitely take a different camera angle. The movie focuses a lot um, on the bad guy here. I forgot his name and so forth, but on the slasher here, the camera, especially early on, picks up from him, follows from behind him. Um and obviously he's going to remind us a little bit of Jason and maybe some other characters we've seen who have followed in the footsteps of Jason, uh, but definitely a different angle. The focus was a lot more on him, following him, um, and not as much with the group of young people he eventually kills. Um, Again, I said I really liked it and so forth, liked the angle they took, liked a lot of the kills in the movie and the violence and all that. I mean, it had to live up to its title, and I think it pretty much did. Liked what they did. I just thought they wished they would have been a little bit more consistent. I'm guessing they just felt they had to get off of it a little bit just to make sure they filled in all the gaps of the story and so forth. Um, but kind of having them fill in the story by him kind of hanging nearby and kind of listening in on the conversation, especially after we get a pretty good solid beginning, then we get kind of introduced to these young people that he's eventually going to kill. And it's more like he's just sitting in the bushes there, and we're getting to kind of hear what he's hearing with them. I didn't, I like I said, I liked where they were going. Wished they could have done that in a different way, maybe shorter. Again, didn't end up being perfect. I know, kind of thinking why they did it to fill in the story there. But if we were really truly following him and following that, maybe there was something else to be done there. I don't know what exactly. And I thought, there were a couple of times where, again, they were doing an interesting job of trying to film him, be from his perspective, but then kind of had these young people kind of in the background so you could see it coming, see what's happening. I think there were definitely a couple of shots of him that were different. It's kind of thinking that, when we compare that to kind of Jason, you kind of see Jason kill somebody, then it jumps to the young people, whatever the hell they're doing, and then Jason kind of appears, and he always appears kind of having a plan or whatever. He kind of executes it or kind of moves a body or whatever, but we don't really get to see that like behind the scenes Jason, and that's kind of, almost what we get here. They did, like I said, it looks like we're getting another part to it. Maybe they can clean that up a little bit more, find a better way to kind of follow it along without, kind of getting to that usual kind of following that. But definitely, I really like the take on it, really like the angle. Again, taking a slasher, what we always know, and trying to do something new, and we see, you scan the Amazon and Netflix and Tubi, and you see a lot of the same stuff, especially when it comes to slashers. It was good to see them try a different angle and try to work something new, and obviously, with that kill was crazy. So, lots to credit, even though in my book it wasn't perfect, but I definitely liked the direction. So I kind of knew that this one was gonna be in the top 10. This was one that I kind of knew it. Where it ultimately landed, I wasn't sure, but it's here. Speaking of movies which I knew were going to be in the tops, this number 3 is one of them. This one is probably going to shock a lot of people. I know I only looked at a few lists. I didn't obviously see it. I know that when I've shown it and I've tweeted about it, when I've talked about it, it's generally got a good response. Obviously, again, this is not a franchise movie, not a big name movie. Didn't hit the theaters as far as I know. Is as much as I, again, for the few of you that might have followed along my reviews, that I've done a few reviews. Oh, I'm searching on Tubi for something that I can actually come and talk about and do and share with you guys. And that also goes for Netflix and whatever. But a movie that maybe not so known or whatever, or something that I've not put on Promote Horror that people know about or whatever. So this is one of those movies that I kind of stumbled upon, didn't know anything about. And it's definitely a movie that you should go in knowing zero about. When I mention the name here, I'm not going to say too much about what goes on in this movie. But when I mention the name, if you see it on Tubi, and it's still there as far as I know, free to watch. If you watch on Tubi and you're looking for one on Tubi, don't struggle like me and just be like, put it on, 10 minutes in, you're like, what is happening? Turning it off. I think this is one that I sat through, make it through. I'll say it's number 3, so I think that there's some worth there. Obviously, you can have your opinion of it, but I think this is one where you won't have to turn it off in the first 10 minutes, and you can sit through. And I knew when I watched this movie that it was going to be in the top 10. I said, this is probably not, unless a lot of these franchise movies just blow me away, which we can see there's not too many of them here. And again, I like to give credit to maybe movies that are you're not going to find on somebody else's list. And the movie I'm talking about is Lowlives. And again, as I just mentioned, with In a Violent Nature, kind of taking a movie that we're familiar with and trying to do something new and different to it. I think, again, I'm going to try to stay away from what happens in this movie. Best known, even if you're listening to this, you're watching this movie, really, don't turn on a trailer, don't look at anything. I've done a review for it. I almost said I was going to do a non-spoiler free review because I really didn't want to say much about it, but it has a bunch of twists and turns, kind of turns the table on. You turn it on Tubi, you're like, you have low expectations. What is this? It comes on, you're like, oh, I've seen all this before. What is happening here? But then there's twists and turns, and it does try to do something different, go in a different way than you expect. I think does manage to have a little bit of comedy in it. I mentioned that there's not a lot of comedy in a lot of the stuff I did here. Art the Clown is probably one of the funniest things in most of these movies. But I think does have a little bit of that in here, a little bit of self-aware that they are trying to spend on what you guys expect. So I think there's that, and did end up having some blood and guts in it. Did have some blood in it. Did have some guts in it. Maybe you do catch the twists and turns that come, but all I know is this is just one of those movies that I watched. Had low expectations for, felt really good about at the end, really liked it, and still have that good feeling about the movie. So I knew it would be here in the top 10 when I watched it, and I just had the guts to move it up the ladder there, and put it at number 3. I really don't think you're gonna see too many other lists with this movie as number 3. And again, you can say, oh, but that movie's not an Oscar movie. That movie's not a franchise movie. That movie's not this, that, or the other thing. But that is fine. That is fine. For me, it is fine. I really enjoyed the movie. Again, maybe having zero expectation, didn't know what the hell I was watching, kind of did it for me. But whatever. I enjoyed it. I liked it. It is where it is. I'm not going to say too much about the plot of the movie, just because I don't want to spoil it. I think even when I did the review, if I tell you too much about it or anything about it, then you're going to have expectations about what the twists are and blah, blah. No. I'm just going to say I really enjoyed it. It had blood and guts, had twists, and it is on Tubi, so you can watch it, and that's about that. In the comment section, you can tell me I'm crazy. That's fine. Number two is one that I'm pretty sure was I mentioned in my review, it was kind of escaping me. Didn't really kind of see this one coming. kind of stumbled upon it. Kind of one of those ones where I saw a lot of people kind of talking about it and was like, oh, well, what's that movie? And then when I kind of found it in front of me, I was like, okay, well, I saw a lot of people talking about it. Let me watch this movie, see what it's about. Obviously, stars a very familiar actress. And apparently the other woman in it is also a familiar actress. I wasn't as familiar with her. Familiar with one. But it was like, okay, let's see, what is going on here. And the level of craziness just went on and on. And again, as I say, as talking about some of these movies and where the movie ends and the final segments of the movie, I thought it was going to end and then it didn't, and then thought it was going to end and thought, there were a couple of times where it could have ended, and they're like, no, we want to top what we just did, or we want to make it a little bit more disgusting and wild than what we just did. And we still have money in our special effects budget, so we're just gonna continue on and just continue to do this to you. And the movie I'm talking about is The Substance. I think this is definitely one that you're going to see on other people's lists. I've seen it on those lists. Definitely think that you're going to find it all over the place in people's lists. So this one probably not a shocker to you. Demi Moore is the actress that I'm talking about that I was familiar with. The other young woman who's in this movie, I know she's done stuff. I can't remember. Again, I'm terrible with these names and whatever and so forth. I know she's familiar. She's done other things that people may recognize her from. Both of them do a spectacular job in this movie. Again, not trying to rate the movie on the acting here. They happen to do a good job. That's not why I put this here, because their acting stood out from the acting in any of the other movies. But they did do a very good job. But again, kind of going to the blood, the guts, special effects, all that craziness. This is all what it is here. If you're looking for, goriness, just, body transformation horror, body horror, this is it. I know there were some other body horror movies that were done this year. I don't think any were done better than this one. And obviously why this is number 2. It just gets crazier as the movie goes on. Just the whole point of the movie where they're basically flipping, bodies and so forth is back and forth is a crazy thing. And again, I don't want to get into anything spoiling the movie, but just know that if you're into body horror, special effects, I said blood and guts, it's in a different way. Again, it's more about body and that kind of thing. But it's just so wild, so crazy, and just never seems to end. I was completely happy that it lived up to the expectations that I seem to be seeing around, and kind of knew that this was, again, another one that was going to be in here somewhere. And, it is, I think I saw it at least on one person's number one. It is up there. I think there won't be too, well, I'll get to number 1 here in a second. But it's a movie that I didn't expect to put it, here when I saw it. I didn't know what I was getting into. Again, a movie that kind of, after I watched it, it's like, what did I just watch? What is happening? What just happened? And then just the more I thought of it, maybe not in the moment. I didn't think that, wasn't sure it would be in a top 10. But then after, the more I thought about it, it's like, how could it not be? So it is there. It is there. So number 1, finally the moment of number 1. And much like number 3, I don't think this is a movie that many of you have seen, may not even be aware of. I think that I ended up seeing a screener of this, so I'm thankful that I saw a screener of this. It is a foreign film, which is another reason that maybe some of you have not seen it. I'm not sure the release here information. I don't remember. uh, all of that kind of information, and I know I put the press releases on Promote Horror, and that's how I knew about the film. And certainly the title of the movie doesn't scream horror at all. And I kind of remember, when I first saw the mention of it and was kind of like, had to read the thing. Is this horror? Why is this horror? Why am I putting why am I putting this press release out? Sometimes you see the title and it's fairly obvious. This is horror. Put the press release. I don't really have to, worry too much about it. But this is one that I was kind of like, is this horror? What is horror here? The title doesn't say it at all. You know, and almost didn't watch it. I almost didn't watch it because of that. I'm like, how could this movie with this title, be worth my time to watch? I don't remember what changed my mind into watching it. I don't know if the person who sent me the screener was just like, hey, watch this movie, or sent it to me again, or I had nothing to watch at the time, which was like, okay, let's watch this movie. I don't remember what made me watch this movie. But if you've stumbled upon my review of this movie, you already know that this movie is here. And if as soon as I turned this on and you saw that review, you know it's there. And if you followed me on Twitter, my choice of number one has not changed. I think I've done that for a couple of years where I've seen a movie and was just like, it is number one. It is going to be hard to beat. Can be beat, but wasn't beat. So you may already know, if you followed along, what the number one movie is. And if you watch that review, it is number one. And yes, I'm getting to the name here in a second. But I think, when you look at some of the other ones on my list, and again, I've gone on several times to talk about the blood and the guts and that kind of thing, and it not having to be like an Oscar movie. It doesn't have to be, this and that doesn't have to be those things. It could just be on my list because of blood and guts. I think that one of the reasons why this movie separates itself from some of the other ones on this list is that it has basically one big blood and guts moment in the movie. Doesn't really get into it, doesn't shatter you with blood, doesn't shatter you with guts, but what ultimately happens in this movie is utterly depressing, shocking. Is a movie that is going to stir your emotions, one way or the other, for many different ways. And this is, I don't want to get, again, that I'm pretty sure I had to do a super spoiler-free review for it when I did it. I don't want to get into too many of the details here because, again, I think that this is a movie where if you know little and you just kind of get into, you'll enjoy it much better. If you have a clue of what's going to happen, you may not enjoy it as much. It is utterly a masterclass in taking a character and just emotionally torturing them through most of the movie. I mean, it starts off slow and almost a common way, but then as the movie goes on, whether it's self-inflicted or from the situations that play out, you just have one character here that is just goes through their own nightmare as this movie goes on, and is pretty much in a pretty real setting here. I mean, this is an event that in many ways could happen. I think if it did happen, especially to this person, I think different avenues could have been done so it wouldn't have been so extreme here. But because of the choices of the one individual, they end up just torturing themselves continuously as this movie goes on. Definitely a masterclass when it comes to that. And I don't think I've used masterclass, as a way to describe many horror movies. And I'm sure that you can say that and I'm sure other people have said, this is a masterclass of this, that, and the other thing. But I don't often say it. It just was. This one individual is just so tortured in this movie, and again, not tied to a chair and putting nails in them, whatever. That would have been fun. That would have been fun. but it is extremely emotional torture here. Um, Brought about by the situation, brought about themselves, and so forth. So it is again a foreign film. I believe you did have to read subtitles in it, which sometimes turns me off. Sometimes not in the mood for it. But as this movie started playing, I remember just being kind of glued to it, glued to the situation, glued to what's happening to this individual, what is going to happen, the direction, what is going to happen. The final act, how's everything going to play out, how is what has happened going to when everybody knows, or when more than just him knows what is going to happen. And just a movie that never lets up, and just I also, in some reviews, also mentioned things like, I like horror to be horror, not to be horror and then have that happy ending at the end with that slight touch of, okay, we're still a horror movie, but overall, we have the final girl, we have the something happy at the end of the movie happening. I think this movie just, if it would have done that, it would have taken away from it. It just had to end the way it ended, and just, again, kind of in shock. Again, kind of like I mentioned with Low Lives, kind of, after you watch the movie, just kind of like, I liked that movie because of this. The movie had my attention. I was there. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened. Thought about watching it again, but, once you kind of know everything that happens, like, I don't know that I want to. But just know that it just had that impact on me that I was like, no, this is. I don't think I've been as glued to the screen, watching even any of the other movies on this list. Definitely watched, enjoyed many of the ones that are on this list. They're on the list for a reason, but I don't think I was as glued to the screen with any of them as I was with this. I tell you guys a lot that I too often am working, on promote or here or whatever, while I watch some of these movies, and sometimes my attention is whatever. But I remember as this started and as we started going down the path, it had my attention. I was there. I wanted to read what was being said, to understand. And I think you have to read those subtitles to really get it all, to take in what they are doing to this character, and the foreshadowing that's being done, and just to get the entire impact of the movie. It's not, I'm pretty sure with Spanish, if you already know Spanish, then you don't have to read the subtitles. Maybe you can just watch the movie regular. But if you don't, I really encourage you to read it all, and to take it all in. Don't do like what I actually do, especially with subtitles, is catch a few lines, whatever I'm doing, catch a few lines and whatever. Really read them, take it all in, take the suffering of the individual in. And so with all that, the movie I'm talking about is The Coffee Table. Again, I did do a review for that, so you can find that along the way. Very spoiler-free review, but I've said it since I've seen that movie. I knew that this was going to be number one, or at least number two, because I knew it would be hard to beat. I've said what I've said about it. I don't want to tell you too much more. It is what it is. Just watch the movie and watch this person be tortured. And I will warn you, it is a tough movie to watch. Specifically, if I don't even want to say that, but it will be a tough movie to watch for some of you for certain reasons, whatever. But it is, that's what it is. I don't want to say, much more than that, about more of the plot and whatever, blah, blah. But it is my number one, and then that's what I'm going for. And I'm not sure if it's the first time a foreign film has made number one. Obviously, foreign films have made my list. But yeah, it's there, and you may not have even known about it or whatever. Again, I'm pretty sure we put up press release, one or two of them about it on Promote Horror, so you can go there and search if you want to know more. But again, I encourage you, just look for where you can see it and see it. It may or may not be available yet for you to see. I don't remember. I think it already came out on DVD or whatever, so you can see it. but yeah, just after you see it, I think it will have some kind of impact on you. Maybe you hate the movie because of what is done in the movie and so forth. But I think, and you may hate me for making you watch the movie after that, because like I said, it will probably impact certain individuals more than others, and that's all I'll say. Um, because of, your life and where you are and stuff, whatever, you'll see. So yeah, so that is the list, and yeah, I've extended way over the time that I wanted to. I was hoping to make this shorter than usual. If you've gone through this whole thing with me, God bless you. Hopefully, I'm very honest. I know I ramble on. Hopefully for your part, you've kind of scrolled through some of this, and not listened to every single second of me going on. But if you have, I thank you. I thank you a lot, and I appreciate the time and effort that you've taken here with me. Again, I think every one of these movies on this list, I think last year there was one that I didn't I didn't review, never did. But all of these movies I think I've reviewed, so you can definitely scroll through the channel here or go over to the blog and find it, any of these movies here. Again, in the comment section, as I always tell you guys, feel free to put whatever you guys want about the reviews and stuff. Hate the list, love the list, agree with some, maybe you didn't see some. Again, if you have any movies that you're wondering whether I saw or not, and maybe that's why they were or were not in this list, feel free to ask me. Feel free to put it there. Feel free to reach out on Twitter, Facebook. That information is down below. Reach out to me there. Say, question me, not like it, didn't like it. What the hell? What is Low Lives? What is The Coffee Table? What the hell are you talking about? Where do you find these movies? How can you include Night Shift in this list? Whatever, I'm willing to take it. Again, as I said at the top, my list, what I enjoyed. You saw the theme here, and again, I think it's gonna be a bit different than what you'll find from others. I would really love to see somebody else's list have two of those three movies that I put at the top three in there. I don't think, but that's not to say somebody else would do something just as crazy in some other movies that we might not be aware of. But that's the beauty. I always say we can agree to disagree, but we are the horror community, and we can talk about it, and at the end of the day, still realize that we're part of the community, and be friends and so forth, and move on to the next movie. So with that, I'm not going to go through the whole usual ending here. Again, just say thank you, especially if you've watched every second of this. I apologize for going longer than I wanted to. And all the information is down below. And feel free to find me and complain and all that stuff that I just said a minute ago. So that is 2024. I do have some more reviews to put out from 2024, but I look forward to 2025. Let's see if we can do something more than 3 pools of blood all the time. Yeah, so here's to 2025. I hope you guys have had a good 2020 to 24, and 2020, 2020, all those 20s. Had a good year, and hopefully 25 is even better. So, happy holidays, happy new year, get all that in here as well. And I'll catch you on the next review, horror fans.